I know, I'm very excited. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eileen Duff. I am the counselor for Judge Blake's district. I'm the chairman here today, and I introduce you to my fellow counselors. Some of them are prior part of traffic, but they're easy to us. Councilor Howard Jacobs, Councilor Paul Powell, Councilor Terry Kennedy, Councilor Chris Ionel.
Morning.
We will start the hearing by reading. Okay, the nomination letter from Governor Healy. Dear councilors, I am pleased to nominate Amy L. Blake to the position of Chief Justice of the Appeals Court. I submit this nomination to the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm opposed to the nominee's resume for your convenience. Sincerely, Morris Healy, Governor of the Commonwealth. We will start the hearing with witnesses for the nominee. And so the first witness on the list is Honorable Ariane Bologna. Did I say your name correctly? Both of them. All right.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilor Duff. Morning to everyone here, members of this honorable council. Good morning to all of our colleagues in the appeals court, current, retired, the judicial court justices, trial court judges, family, and friends. It is an honor to be here and a truly special occasion for all of us. My name is Ariane Bologna, and I am the Senior Associate Justice at the Massachusetts Appeals Court, and currently I am the acting chief. Trust me when I tell you that the nominee, Justice Amy Lynn Blake, is eminently qualified to lead our court, and if confirmed, will be an exceptional chief justice. She has the talent, experience, compassion, and energy. I'm going to tell you why that is so. But first, let's pause to recognize the historic moment of this nomination. I applaud the governor and nominated a woman for the first time in history. By confirming the nomination, you it's certainly going to be a momentous occasion, but it is important to note it will be momentous, not only because first, but because the first woman that will or even the first of enormous integrity who will leave her mark on the court based on merit. Many of you have voted to confirm this placement 10 years ago and earlier. I imagine that you know that you were right on both those issues. And now I'm going to tell you why you will be right again on confirming the nomination. First, Justice Blake is out in approximately 500 decisions, 89 of which are public. Participants are always timely, clear, and in my view, correct. Even if SJC doesn't always agree, they may be differently of consultation, but as far as I'm concerned, they have the last word with you are correct. I should also note that she offers decisions in every area of the law, in every software department in the agency. I'm not going to dwell on her day job, because it is a matter of public record. But I think it is important for you to know how well she does that job, because it provides context for everything else she does. Because you see, Justice Blake does far more than side. What her application and her resume do not reveal is what I call her quote, open door policy. For example, you all know that Justice Blake came to our court with expertise in family law matters. The big judge or a staff member has a question about an matter arising from a probate family court, she's always available. And does so. And your open door policy that's beyond manners. Members of the staff, because if they have an issue, they know she can listen. If that's all that's needed, that's all she can do. If more is required, she is not afraid to take steps to resolve the conflict. Second, Justice Blake's commitment to the court is unwavering, as reflected by her service on many of the court's committees, including stuff, questioning work hard, drafting job descriptions, capital reviews, and she has reached out to the community bars to create a more diverse community. I'm to go on, but I was told not to mention every single thing that Justice Blake has accomplished, but there are so many. When you see on her resume that she was in the court committee for self-representation, what you might not know is that she works directly with our first office to improve access to our courts. Also, something that you might not know is that although she was the liaison to the juvenile court for 4 years, she was only supposed to serve a 2-year term. But the judges of that court admired her so much, and she proved to be such an invaluable conduit between our courts. I, as chair of the liaison committee, has acquiesced to let her re-up. Third, my time in the past 10 years, Justice Blake has become an ambassador from the appeals board to the legal team. She's a member of the Boston Bar Journal, co-chair of that. Fellow of the Mass Bar College. She's taught the law at night and in the law. Recently, just 2 years ago, Justice Blake was recruited to a leadership role in the National Association of Judges. That organization created a leading voice for women jurists dedicated to promoting diverse judicial leadership. Oh, they're an audience. I'm not going to start in the beginning, right? People know that okay. She is currently District 1 director of that organization, which means she is responsible for organizing the programs to promote these goals from Maine to Puerto Rico. In just 2 years, her work garnered the attention of the executive committee, who have been so impressed that they asked her to co-chair the next annual conference ranking test. Now, some of us would be tired doing much less. But I mean, she has an unbelievable capacity. And when Justice Blake comes to that task quickly and she follows through. This is in fact that show you. Believe it or not, I can dispatch this to us. Due to time restrictions, and I know that if we're not going to book, I will take my time. I cannot talk about all because of today's technology. My point is that these experiences that I mentioned have not only prepared her to lead, but more importantly, the manner in which she has carried out responsibilities shows us that she's a leader. There's a reason why, as you will learn from the witnesses that follow me, that this is a law work. You admire her so much, and why the staff relied on her. Frankly, I believe that she's a natural leader. That said, to say those qualities come naturally with diminished dedication, commitment, and hard work. It is not easy to lead, no matter how many people see. It takes more than that. It takes strength, ability, and determination. These are not just adjectives that describe Justice Blake. They define closing, tell you that I had the privilege of serving on the election committee. During that time, I watched each of whom had brought their own individual strengths and positions. I can assure you, if confirmed, Justice Blake will stand tall among you. As I said at the beginning of my remarks, if confirmed, she will not only take her place in history as the first woman to be chief justice, she will take her place as an extraordinary leader of the judiciary in Massachusetts. Thank you for your time and your commitment to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I agree with you, it is prehistoric and opposed to the chief justice. I want to point out the chief justice, the new chief justice is pretty difficult. Regarding the chief justice.
Absolutely correct. And now we have the last court of call.
We'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Talk about Emerson, the sentence, and I had the privilege of voting for all of the chief justice.
Maren. Oh, I'm this party to hear, but I've watched him see a couple of other times in the meantime.
That was a crowd vote, and yes, I did vote for Bobby. I'm voting for Bobby Supreme Judicial, that will be voting more than one, and I'll put it in the name later.
Okay.
But, I'm nice to see you. Now, tell me, what attribute do you think that comes to your mind, and I'm sure there's a lot of them, that this candidate brings to the position of chief justice?
Well, frankly, there are many.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next witness is Attorney Barbara Farrell, who's the administrative attorney and law firm manager. Morning, members of the Governor's Council, Justice Blake, members of the Appeals Court, family, and friends. It is an honor and a privilege to be here today to speak in support of Justice Blake's nomination as Chief Justice of the Massachusetts Appeals Court. The presence of so many of Justice Blake's colleagues and friends, both here in the room and on the live stream, is a testament to how thrilled we are about this historic nomination, and it speaks volumes about our enthusiastic support for her. My name is Maggie Farrell. I'm an administrative attorney at the Appeals Court, where I also manage our 27 law clerks. I actually began my legal career here in Massachusetts at the Appeals Court as a law clerk working with Justice Francis Spina. I subsequently joined him at the Supreme Judicial Court, where I was a career law clerk for 14 years, before returning to the Appeals Court in the summer of 2016. That is when I had the great fortune to meet Justice Blake, who had arrived 2 years earlier. Meeting judges for the first time can be a bit intimidating, not knowing what to expect or how the relationship might develop. With Justice Blake, my welcome could not have been warmer. As I came to realize, that is how Justice Blake rolls. She has an open and engaging personality that draws people to her. She is quick with a funny story or with thoughtful advice, always conveying that she has listened carefully and that your concerns, whatever they may be, have been heard and understood. In my experience, the happiest and most productive employees are those who are invested in the organization and its mission. Not surprisingly, the success of an organization like the Appeals Court
begins with the leadership at the top, which is why the position of Chief Justice in particular is so important to all of us. The nomination of Justice Blake, who, if confirmed, would be the first woman to lead the appeals court, is exciting, inspirational, and well-deserved. As Justice Buno has already shared, Justice Blake has had an illustrious career as an attorney and a jurist. Her talent for recognizing, acknowledging, and cultivating the value of the entire appeals court team enables us to execute at the highest level the mission of the court, namely to do justice under the law by rendering thoughtful, well-reasoned appellate decisions in a timely and efficient manner, treating all those who come before the court fairly and impartially. The execution of this mission involves many moving parts, and Justice Blake has both the talent and the temperament to be wildly successful. During the early days of my tenure in the appeals court, I had the pleasure of assisting Justice Blake with the initial drafting of several of her decisions. It was an opportunity for me to learn about the nuances of challenging cases and the resolution of tricky issues from someone who had more experience than I had. At every turn, Justice Blake was generous with her time and thoughtful in her advice about how I could produce my very best work. That is what Justice Blake does. Simply put, she makes everyone around her better. It is a remarkable skill and an invaluable asset for a Chief Justice. In my role as law clerk manager, I have closely observed Justice Blake build relationships with her law clerks and judicial interns. As a proud graduate of New England Law Boston, she pays forward the opportunity that she was afforded by frequently hiring law clerks and interns from that law school. Justice Blake views one of her important roles as that of teacher and mentor. She spends considerable time with her law clerks and interns, discussing the merits of the cases she has heard, reviewing the quality of the advocacy, providing guidance on the best approach for a written decision, and giving both career and life advice. Moreover, Justice Blake's role in the lives of her law clerks does not simply end at the conclusion of their clerkship. To the contrary, once a Justice Blake law clerk, always a Justice Blake law clerk. She is delighted by their success and happy to provide a useful perspective or a helping hand as they move forward in establishing their own legal careers. Over the years, Justice Blake's law clerks have repeatedly told me how much they appreciate and value her mentorship and her friendship. They are becoming or have become excellent lawyers under her tutelage. Justice Blake is, without a doubt, the leader that the Massachusetts Appeals Court needs at this moment in history. Based on our many conversations, I know well that she cares deeply about the court, about her colleagues, and about our collective success. Her approach to leadership is not my way or the highway, but rather, let's collaborate and find a realistic and workable solution. Justice Blake personifies the qualities that the appeals court should expect and would want in an outstanding leader. She is warm, collegial, smart, humble, respectful of diverse viewpoints, and thoughtful in making decisions large and small. It never ceases to amaze me that she is always on top of her caseload and her committee responsibilities, and she still manages to find time to orchestrate the production of the Appeals Court Cookbook. Justice Blake exemplifies the best of the appeals court, and we would be in excellent hands with her at the helm. In closing, I would urge you to vote in favor of Justice Blake and confirm her nomination as Chief Justice of the Massachusetts Appeals Court. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great statement. Council Kennedy.
You find meeting new judges intimidating?
They can be.
Yeah, me too. But I have to tell you, long before Justice Blake was a judge, I met her when she was a young DA in Somerville Court. She was pretty intimidating then.
Councilor Devaney.
Welcome. I'm very happy to see you because it means a lot to me to see someone who has worked with the candidate. Now, tell us about your interaction. Is it every day? And tell us what your role is with the judge.
So it has varied over time. During the early part of my tenure, as I said, I was working with her on decisions, so I was back and forth with her on a fairly regular basis regarding that. Now I'm no longer doing that kind of work, so my interactions with her primarily stem from her work with her law clerks and her judicial interns. So I am considerably involved in helping her with the selection of her law clerks, orchestrating that process. I work with her when we do what we affectionately refer to as appeals on wheels, when we go to different locations other than the John Adams Courthouse for oral arguments. Justice Blake has participated in that program. And I would say that just generally, as Judge Buno has mentioned, Justice Blake very much has an open door policy. So if other issues come up, that I am eager for, a helpful hand or a thoughtful ear. If I'm trying to work out something for myself and I am looking for some wise input, Judge Blake is the person to go to.
So you kept busy. So, do you interact on a daily basis? And how about the other judges? Is it just, do you do this with all the judges?
I do
Your
this with
job?
most of the judges. Some,
Okay.
depending
Okay.
upon the judge, so some I see more frequently than others. I would say I'm not interacting with Judge Blake every single day, but I would say that about every judge. I'm not
Right.
interacting with them
Right.
every single day.
But I've been following your court and it's been very difficult during the pandemic. And people working at home and new people coming in, you don't have that interaction. How have you been able to communicate through this time?
It seems like now that sort of the COVID pandemic is over, people are back in the courthouse more frequently. There are a lot of activities that are going on around the courthouse, whether it be oral argument, whether it be educational programs, whether it be social activities. Those are all things that draw people into the court. Plus, the law clerks are oftentimes in the courthouse 4 to 5 days a week. Because it's an opportunity for them to work with the judge, to work with each other. They're at the start of their career. So they really want to get a sense of what it's like to be at the court and everything that is happening there.
Okay.
So while it maybe it was challenging, during COVID times, I feel like we sort of come out of that and we're getting back into the regular routine.
That's great. So how long have you had this job?
I've had this job since the summer of 2016.
Wow. Well, good for you. What would you say that she brings to this position as Chief Justice for the years that you've been working with her?
I think the word that first comes to mind for me is inspiration. She is a guiding force at the appeals court. You never go by her office, but somebody is in there discussing something with her. But that's her personality. She's open, she's welcoming, and she's interested in hearing how people are doing. And to the extent anybody has any concerns, what she can do to help them work through those concerns.
Well, thank you for all you do. You have a lot of enthusiasm for the position. I can see that too. So thank you.
Any other questions? Council Jacobs?
Hi, I really appreciated your testimony. It really, it said a lot and it meant a lot. I wanted to ask you, based on your experience, if there are times that you have experienced Judge Blake when there was a challenge to resolve and maybe challenging conversations needed to be had. If you've experienced her in that kind of a context, I'd love to hear from you sort of your description of how she approaches moments like that and how you would describe her style at those times and if there's examples you can think of the outcomes from those experiences.
Yes, from time to time, there are certainly challenging experiences. And I would say the way that I have interacted with her is go into her office, let's talk about this. In her approach is never, you must do it this way, or you must do it that way. It's always, please tell me what you think about this. How do you think is the best way to approach this? how can I help you accomplish whatever that goal is or whatever the result is that you are trying to achieve? So it's very much a team effort. And I think that's a lot of how the appeals court works. You know, there are a lot of people that work there. We all have different functions and everybody is sort of contributing to the general mission of the organization. And she is an instrumental part in all of that. And it makes a huge difference when you're working with somebody who is open to different ideas, different perspectives, is eager to hear what you think and to really listen. You know, I don't think you can underestimate the value of good listening and really understanding what it is that the person is presenting to you. And then trying to figure out in a collaborative approach the best way forward. Because ultimately that's what we're all trying to do, is find that best solution as well as we can.
I appreciate that. Thank
Thanks
you. I don't have
very
any further questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you
you.
very much. We appreciate your testimony. The next witness will be Attorney Brian Edmonds. And I want to let the people in the room and the public know that when you're a witness for or against, you must have direct interaction with the person sitting there, whether it's Judge Blake or somebody else. This is not a time to, you know, complain about a court or something like that. We want to hear your experience with this candidate. Thank you.
Good morning, counselors. Good morning, Justice Blake, and good morning to everyone in the audience today. This is truly an incredible day. My name is Brian Edmonds. I am a litigation associate at Princelow Bell Tie. I work primarily in their new Worcester office, and I am honored to come before you today to speak about an incredible justice, the Honorable Amy Lynn Blake. I had the distinct privilege of serving as Justice Blake's law clerk for 2 years, from 2020 to 2022. And being her law clerk was one of the highest honors of my professional career, and I am beyond thrilled to have the opportunity to speak about my mentor, Justice Blake. Justice Blake has many incredible attributes. You heard about many of them from Justice Vuno and from Attorney Farrell. Being a true mentor to everyone at the appeals court is an important responsibility that I feel is vested in the Chief Justice. And as Justice Blake's former law clerk, and someone who considers her to be my most important mentor, I think I'm in a unique position to talk about how she has mentored me and how I have seen her mentor others. Judicial law clerks at the appeals court effectively serve as the right hand to the justice that hires them. A law clerk assists the justice in all aspects of the work, but more often than not, a law clerk is fresh out of law school, which makes mentorship that much more important. In many ways, law school teaches you about the law, but the practical realities of being a lawyer can only be learned through practice. And that is why having an active mentor is so important, helping you succeed. Sitting here before you today, I can say with confidence that while law school taught me about the law, I learned how to be a lawyer from Justice Blake. I joined Justice Blake at the appeals court in August of 2020. And at that time, the world was still in lockdown. The court was operating in a fully remote capacity. And to say that I was nervous was an understatement. I was fresh out of law school, learning how to be a lawyer, and my first official legal job was going to be from my bedroom. But Justice Blake immediately made me feel comfortable. She made it clear that even in a remote world, we would still be working together closely. She made it clear that she took her role as my mentor seriously. She did this through her words, and more importantly, her actions. During the time that we were working in a completely remote world, Justice Blake and I had a Zoom call almost every day. Usually we talked about the work, but sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we talked about life, what TV show we were watching during the pandemic, or what TV show we had encouraged the other to watch. And the reason for that is because Justice Blake knew being my mentor involved getting to know who I was on a personal level. It was about more than just getting the work done. But when it came to the work, Justice Blake took the time to talk to me about every single writing assignment. She made redline edits. She talked about strengths. She talked about weaknesses. She helped me switch from thinking about the law as a subject in school to the law in the real world. Similarly, after every oral argument, we would do a debrief, and we would talk about the cases. We would talk about the advocacy. We would talk about what was effective and what was less effective. Justice Blake didn't have to do those things, but she did them because she was invested in helping me grow and helping me succeed. She was invested in helping me become the best lawyer that I could be. After clerking for Justice Blake, I went on to clerk for Justice Lowy at the Supreme Judicial Court. And during that time, Justice Lowy commented on a number of occasions about how well prepared I was. But I couldn't take the credit. I was well prepared because Justice Blake prepared me. In fact, Justice Lowy told me recently that it was Justice Blake's recommendation that solidified his decision to hire me. In my current position as litigation associate, whenever I'm confronted with a problem, I think back to all that I learned from Justice Blake about effective and ineffective advocacy. The truth is, she helped me get where I am today, and she has made it clear that when or if I need any advice, professionally or personally, her door is open. That's the kind of mentor that she is. I think it's also important to add, and you heard some of this from Justice Buono and from Attorney Farrell, but Justice Blake's mentorship is not limited to her law clerks. During my second term clerking for her, the appeals court resumed in-person operations, and from my cubicle, I had a clear view of her chambers. It became very clear that her chambers had something of a revolving door. Everyone from other justices to staff attorneys to court officers would go in and out of her office. It was very clear to me that the reason they came to see her was because they knew she's incredibly wise, has a friendly ear, and offers the most incredible advice. Simply put, the entire court looks to Justice Blake as a mentor. In closing, I would just like to add one more reason to the long list of reasons why Justice Blake will be a perfect Chief Justice. She's someone who cares. She cares about each litigant that comes before the court, and she approaches each and every case with a fair and impartial eye. She cares about every member of the court staff, and she will do everything in her power to help them solve a problem if one arises. As her law clerk, I had the privilege of seeing that each and every day. And while I wouldn't say that I learned kindness, I learned how to be more kind from Justice Blake. Everyone at the appeals court looks at her and thinks, this is what you should be. This is how you should act. I am proud to give my full and undivided support to the Honorable Amy Lynn Blake for the role of Chief Justice of the Appeals Court. And with that being said, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Councilors, any questions?
No, just,
Councilor DiPaolo.
Attorney Emmons, you work alongside some of the most distinguished and respected attorneys in Worcester. It tells me that Justice Blake prepared you well. So glad to have you part of the bar community.
She did.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor DeVena.
Tell me, can you tell us one case that stands out in your memory with Judge Blake that really impressed you about her demeanor, just about how she presented herself?
Well, it might sound silly, but I do think of all of them because she approaches every case with a fair and impartial eye. One thing that I think is really special and something that I have taken with me as I have gone on to both the Supreme Judicial Court and private practice is that even in moments where there were disagreement, where there might be a dissent, Justice Blake always thought about and encouraged me to think about the fact that things should not be personal. There should be respect when you are disagreeing with someone. And she exemplified that through not only her actions, because sometimes the justices were able to bridge divide and come to an agreement. And she also showed it with her writing, because in the instances where there may have been a dissent or a majority opinion, it was always respectful to the other side.
All right, great. Thank you. Your testimony means a lot to me, so I really appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, Councilor Jacobs, I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna try to do better on this microphone than last time, apparently. Is this good? Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. I actually, again, I want to say I really appreciate your testimony. So this was your first experience out of law school for a year?
For 2 years. So
2 years.
2 years.
2 years. So, that's a time in life where growth, and therefore, again, going back to the challenging conversations, I would love to hear a time when some criticism of your work was offered, an opportunity to do different or do better, and sort of how that was delivered and how that was navigated, and your own like the emotional context of that, of how you received it and then came out through that.
Well, I'll go back a little bit to actually my interview with Justice Blake, because one of the questions she had for me when we interviewed was if I would be receptive to feedback. And it became a recurring joke with us that my drafts, particularly in the beginning, looked like a Christmas tree because it was red and green with lots of edits in the track changes function. And my first draft was completed in early to mid-September of 2020. At that time, I had been in the John Adams Courthouse once to pick up a laptop. Otherwise, I had been working from my childhood bedroom. And I sent off my first draft. And I was sweating. I was nervous. I was stressed. And I want to say maybe 2 hours later, my phone rang and it was Justice Blake. She said, "So I'm going to send you a draft. I'm going to send you some feedback. And I don't want you to freak out. I'm going to send you 2 versions. One is the red line, but you really can't see your work anymore. So I'm going to send you a clean copy." And she made light of the fact that there was so much room for improvement and so much room for growth. And from that point on, it became very, very clear that she was invested in helping me succeed. And every change that she made, there were very few times where I disagreed. If there was a moment where I wanted to maybe push back or say, I think this was actually correct, she was there to listen. And I can think of 1 or 2 moments where her initial reaction and my initial reaction were different, and we were able to bridge our, slight divide, which was very rare, but we worked so well together. And it, again, the highest honor of my professional career.
Thank you. I appreciate all of that. That was really extra information that I really enjoyed hearing. Thank you.
So would you say that 2 of the best that you've worked with are Judge Lowy and Judge Blake?
Without a doubt.
And they went to Peabody High School where I went.
I
so-
do.
All right, thank you. Peabody is the center of the universe. And is there anyone else here in person to testify in favor? Okay, hearing none. There are a plethora of letters we've received in support from around the country from some very distinguished jurists, some federal judges, the National Association of Women Judges. Chief sent us a letter, which is quite impressive, and all these will be submitted officially into the record. Is there anyone here to testify against? And again, remind you, if you are, you do need to have direct experience dealing with this jurist. Anyone against?
There's a line in security this morning.
Yeah, I saw that one. So, well, hearing none, we will move to your statement. And before you give us your statement, Judge, if there's anyone here you'd like to introduce, feel free to do that.
Thank you. I'm overwhelmed by so many people here today. I have so many of my appeals court colleagues, both current judges, retired judges, including Chief Justice Green, as well as so many of our managers. Our court administrator is here, our operations manager, our clerk of court. Many of our court officers are here. I'm told they're going to rotate through because we still need security at the John Adams Courthouse. So the other thing I'm quite proud of is every single one of my law clerks that has ever clerked for me is here. One actually flew in from North Carolina, and my law clerk that I've hired for next year is here in attendance as well. So I'm so pleased about that. I also want to recognize SJC Justice Gabrielle Wolahosian, who was my mentor on the appeals court, who actually I coined the Christmas tree from her because that's what my drafts used to look like. I also want to acknowledge District Attorney Marion Ryan, who was one of my first supervisors when I was at the DA's office as a law student by night and victim witness advocate by day. There are also a number of probate and family court practitioners, retired judges, and staff here. And then I will introduce you to my family during my remarks.
Thank you. Carry on.
Okay, good morning. I would like to thank the Governor's Council for your time today in consideration of my nomination, as well as all the time that you have spent in preparation for this hearing. I would also like to thank Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll for nominating me to the position of Chief Justice of the Appeals Court. Thank you also to the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission, the Governor's Legal Office, Valerie McCarthy and her staff for the important work you all do in vetting candidates for judgeships. Finally, I'd like to thank my colleagues, family, and friends who are here today, watching online, or with me in spirit. Counselor Duff took the steam out of this, but I want to tell you a little bit about me. I grew up in Peabody, and I attended and graduated from the Peabody Public Schools. I am the eldest of 3 children, and I am the child of divorced parents. My brother Dean lives in Florida. My brother Adam and his husband Michael live in Washington State, and my father lives in Florida. I know they are watching this hearing online today, along with some of my extended family. Talking about my mom moved from Albuquerque, New Mexico, back to Peabody in 2009 when she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Sorry. It was our privilege to take care of my mom in our home. I said I wouldn't do this until she passed in 2011, and I know and hope she's looking down today and smiling. I'm proud to continue to live in Peabody, my hometown, where my husband and I have raised our son. Community is important to me. Let me please introduce you to my family. My husband, Richard, is a former Marine, and I guess you're not supposed to ever say they're former, but he's a retired Marine and a retired captain of the Swampscott Fire Department. He is my rock. We've been married for 32 years, and I'm now going to be on record, Richard, saying I could not be sitting before the council today without your love and support. However, my pride and joy is my wonderful son, Max. Max will turn 27 next week. Max graduated from Champlain College and worked in the video game industry on really cool games like Fortnite and Call of Duty. But he's now returned to graduate school and he's working towards his master's degree in project management and operations. Max is smart, creative, kind, and funny. Max also has a deep passion for social justice. He makes me a better person and by extension, a better judge. He reminds me every day of the importance of listening and building consensus. When I told Max that I was considering applying for this position, he said, in only the way Max can, "Mom, you can do hard things, you always have." With that love and support, my decision to apply for this position was an easy one. Thank you, Max and Rich. You have my resume and my application, which sets forth my professional achievements and the like, so I won't reiterate all of that here. But I'd like to highlight a few things that I hope will illustrate my thinking as a judge, and I believe will help to inform my role as chief if confirmed by this honorable council. My path to this nomination was not well defined. In fact, law school was never on my radar. I didn't know lawyers, there weren't any in my family, and I was the first person in my family to graduate from a four-year college. Because of an elective I took during my undergraduate studies, I became interested in the law. But my financial situation did not permit me to study law as a full-time day student. So I applied to the evening division program at New England School of Law, and I was accepted. For the next 4 years, I worked full-time during the day as a victim witness advocate and attended law school at night. I think I came close to mastering the delicate balance of working full-time and immersing myself in my studies, but it was certainly a challenge. When I graduated, I didn't know what type of law I wanted to practice, but I had the opportunity to start my career as a prosecutor. I stayed in Middlesex County for a couple of years where I learned to not only think on my feet, but had the absolute privilege to work with victims and witnesses of crime. It was the first time, but not the last time in my career, that I would meet good people at one of the most difficult times in their lives. I then entered private practice, where I represented men, women, and children as they navigated the breakup of their families. It turned out that my own experience as a child of divorced parents allowed me to bring a unique perspective to my practice, to handle every case with compassion and empathy with the goal of doing no harm. Once again, I worked on behalf of good people during one of the most difficult periods in their lives. After practicing law at a boutique law firm for more than a decade, I joined Kasner and Edwards in 2003 as an equity partner. At that time, I did not know that I was the first female equity partner in the firm's history. Nor did I appreciate at that time how important that was. Upon reflection, I'm very proud of the part I played in opening the door at Kasner and Edwards for other women. In fact, the advancement of women in the law is a passion of mine, and I believe my resume confirms my dedication to this cause, including serving on the board of the National Association of Women Judges as a district director and conference chair. For the past 16 years, I've had the privilege of serving this great Commonwealth as a judge, 6 in the probate and family court, and the last 10 at the appeals court. I work with the best and brightest people every day. The judges and staff of the appeals court approach each litigant, each lawyer, and each case the same, with the utmost professionalism, sharing the common goal of delivering justice in a timely manner. We all strive to get it right as we tackle difficult legal issues and societal challenges. The cases are about so much more than the discrete legal issues on appeal. They touch on issues of substance use, mental health struggles, poverty, race, gender, and more. And so we approach each case by applying the rule of law, faithful to precedent, but always with compassion. If confirmed as chief, I am committed to building integrity and trust within the court and with all court stakeholders. I vow to effectively communicate by actively listening, ensuring mutual understanding, and showing empathy towards others' feelings and needs. I promise to be authentic, humble, self-aware, and respectful. I will endeavor to lead by example and to inspire and empower all members of the appeals court to grow professionally and work collaboratively towards our common goal of justice. I am both honored and humbled by the chance to lead this remarkable court if I am confirmed, and to do so as the first woman Chief Justice is something I could never have dreamed of. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Judge. I will start with Counsel Ionella's. No, we're gonna go this way?
Yes.
That's
to your right.
Okay,
That's our move.
this is my right.
Yeah,
Okay, but we'll start with
We're
you,
not in
Karen.
regular chamber.
No, we're not. All
Are
right,
you
Counsel,
in the back now?
I'm putting you in the back.
Yeah.
Counsel Kennedy,
She's the only one I'm afraid of.
he should be.
But, I get to go first because we have wounds.
That's what I thought.
And I only have about 2 hours worth of questions.
I'm fine.
I do have a few questions, not many yet. But one of the things that's come up in the past with respect to the appeals court is how long it takes to get decisions out and how long it takes to get decisions out after they've been written and they're being edited and things like that. At one point, there was a pretty good backlog in terms of that. How are you guys doing with that?
Thank you for that question, Council Kennedy. I'm very proud to say I think we've made tremendous progress. And I think that that has been a focus of all departments at the court. We do have some gaps in staffing and some cases where things tend to get clogged. But I think we're working creatively and looking at our resources to figure out ways to expedite things. I will say we have a new clerk of court. We are in the process of hiring a new chief staff attorney. And I think that folks really are focused on working collaboratively to figure out the best way forward. I think we are far better placed today than we were when I joined the court. I think each year there are challenges. And with the addition right now of our bench, a third of our judges have been there 4 years or less. So there's still sort of a learning curve for judges too, and it takes a while to get up and running, but we have a strong mentorship program. We have strong staff, and I believe that we will continue to make advancements and improvements in our timing of decisions.
One of the issues I've always had when it comes to that backlog is we have some people that are sitting in jail. My friend Counselor Juvenile used to refer to it as a cage.
Mhm.
And they're sitting there, and sometimes, you know, a panel may have decided that, you know, this conviction's not gonna stand. We're gonna overturn it. And that person should be getting out of jail. But we're sitting there waiting for editing to occur. We're sitting there waiting for things to get published. Do you do anything to prioritize those types of cases? You know, we have a lot of civil cases that are important. I'm not suggesting they're not, But when somebody's sitting in a cage that should be getting out, shouldn't we be making that a priority?
Absolutely. In fact, there are two categories of cases that are prioritized, both in terms of judicial writing and the editorial process. One are criminal convictions that are going to be reversed and the person is going to be released. So those decisions are to be authored first, and they are prioritized in our editorial department to get those out as quickly as possible. The second category of cases is the termination of parental rights cases so that children can have permanency. So we do that. It's important. We have to continue to do that. And I'm sure that we can do better. And I'm happy to look at our processes to make sure that we are in fact doing that. And I know we work with our clerk's office in expediting rescripts so that people can in fact be released if that's what's supposed to happen.
In those cases, and I agree, parental termination cases are equally important. How long does it take from the time a decision is made until it's published? Because until it's published, it doesn't mean anything.
Correct. So it depends if it's a published decision or an unpublished decision. The published decisions do take a little bit longer because they go through the reporter's office through the Supreme Judicial Court. But I can only speak from my own writing. If I have a case where someone's being released, I am usually able to write that decision and get that into editorial with my panel signing off within 2 weeks.
And how long from the 2
And
weeks
then
that you've written it
editorial-
to the point that, okay, this, I understand there might be further appellate review, but
Right.
how long does it take from the time that you've written it to the time that it becomes an official opinion where it's sent back to the trial court and saying, let this guy out of jail or this woman out of jail?
So once it goes into our editorial department and it's flagged as priority, it's usually picked up within a day or two. It's turned around to the judge within a day or two and then on a list for release. So I would say from the time it goes in editorial to out, it should be a week or less.
Okay. Week in jail is a long time.
It absolutely is.
In terms of criminal, let's start with criminal cases. I know that most cases that have criminal verdicts of guilty are overturned, the vast majority. What percentage of them that have gone to verdict, that people are found guilty, that are appealed to the appeals court, would you say are reversed?
So remember that our standard of review is a very narrow one. So
I
there are,
understand
we
that.
do have a lot of affirmances. You are correct. I looked at some numbers recently, and on the criminal side, I would say that there is between 15 and 20% reversal rate. That might include
At the appeals court?
at the appeals court, but that may also include not just things that have gone to judgment, but it may also include something interlocutory on a motion to suppress. So there, I can't necessarily
get
pull
that.
those out for you, but that's the approximate percentage.
Okay. I understand that, and I've been doing this for a couple of years, so I know what your standard of review is. 41 next month. Now, civil cases.
Yes,
You get a lot of appeals on civil cases.
We do.
Probably more than on criminal cases, I would expect.
the docket's roughly equal, and it can vacillate year to year, and post-COVID, they're prioritizing criminal over civil, so I think right now we have a little bit of a higher criminal than civil, but
Well, civil cases get a lot more interlocutory appeals, right?
absolutely.
But with respect to civil cases that have gone to verdict, and I'm not talking about civil cases that have then gone by way of summary judgment or anything like that, have gone to verdict, standing in front of a jury, the
Right.
jury comes back and rules in favor of a plaintiff or a defendant. What percentage of those types of cases would you say get reversed?
So unfortunately, our statistics do not pair out trial verdict versus summary judgment reversal.
Well, what's your-
I would say that of the civil cases that get reversed, I'm gonna say it's in the range of 15%. And I would say a very small percentage of that is reversal after trial. I think the vast majority of those cases that are reversed are as a result of summary judgment.
Well, what's your best estimate on post-verdict civil cases?
I would say 2 to 3%. It's a
That's it,
Small
2 to
number,
3%.
yes.
Basically, you're respecting the trier fact, whether it be a judge or jury.
Right, we have to find clear error of law or an abuse of discretion, and that's a pretty high standard.
Well, but you're not suggesting that some of the judges in the trial court commit errors, do you?
Never. Just mistakes.
Okay, yeah, I'm almost done. I've known you, for how long?
Well, 35 years.
You know, we
I
may,
gave you continuances when you asked me for them in the DA's
don't
office.
bring those up, Judge Brennan's here. He may have resisted a few of those over the years. We've tried some cases, I think, way back in the beginning of the time.
We did.
Don't you wish you gave me that continuous auto finding now?
Yeah,
Huh?
I couldn't
Would
give
you like
it
to
to
go
you.
back and reconsider
The
that?
law has changed on OUI since then.
But I've known you forever. I've seen you, when you were in private practice. I've seen you when you were a prosecutor. I've seen you on the bench. I've seen you, I've read some of your decisions. I do read a decision once in a while. You're just a superstar. I got a text message as I was sitting here from a friend of yours, Marty Kane. He said, "Be nice to Amy Blake." I said, "No." I'm just leaving Norfolk now, Norfolk probate, trying to get up there. She'll be fantastic, bright, pragmatic, common sense, in short, a superstar to run the appeals court. Marty and I don't always agree, but we agree this time.
Thank you.
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you.
And I will be obviously voting for that.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor DiPaolo.
Thank you, Counselor. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to thank Counselor Kennedy for his questions around criminal appeals, and I know the public will appreciate your thoughtful response there. I fielded a lot of phone calls and reached out to some acquaintances who've practiced before appeals. The feedback's been universally positive, including that you're an excellent writer, but more important to me, stepping into a leadership role, is your interpersonal skills and the mentorship you've provided for folks over the years. So I don't want to disappoint you or the large and distinguished crowd who's here today, who no doubt we're hoping for a lively council hearing. But I don't have any questions for you. I trust that the appeals on wheels will continue to roll through Worcester
Absolutely.
on occasion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Jacobs.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good morning.
I actually had the pleasure of sitting down with you right after an Appeals on Wheels day. And it worked out so well for me because I have sadly not been able to attend the 2 or 3 that had happened over the last couple of years that I wanted to go to because just scheduling. So it was a great day. I got to head out to Springfield and get to observe the appeals court and then transition into chatting with you. I will say the panel that came out to Springfield unanimously and enthusiastically encouraged me to support you and had many, 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 many positive things to say, which has also been echoed in the emails and the calls that have been coming in on your behalf. It's been an overwhelming amount of outreach on your behalf. And I think that married to the very well attended hearing that you're having right now speaks to the reception of the news of your nomination and the support that you have behind you. And I think that says a lot. We did have a really good conversation in which I really feel like I got to know who you are as a human. And we talked about various things, but really it was your character, I think, that came through in a powerful way and has been reflected in the witnesses who've spoken on your behalf. I too don't have a lot of questions. I will offer one before closing, but we talked about it a little bit. I think it's an important aspect of the interesting balance this position has between administration side and continuing to sit the bench on the court. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to your perception of the challenges that are unique to the appeals court in this moment. And if you have a plan, if you have a goal that you'd like to bring through your leadership and possibly some specific objectives that you can foresee in the first like not to go so far as a first 100-day plan, but like your initial, what you think your strategic direction's going to be if given this role.
I'm excited about the fact that the chief in the appeals court also hears cases, right? That's why we go to law school. And so I hearken back to my going to law school at night and working full-time during the day. And I think that surprisingly has prepared me well, not knowing that this would be the seat I was in today, to sort of balance what that day is going to look like. I think that the appeals court, even though we are post-COVID, has challenges because on the one hand, we do have a hybrid work policy, which I think is very helpful to a lot of our staff. I've talked to my trial court colleagues, and some of them have had great difficulty retaining or even hiring staff because folks in this post-pandemic world don't necessarily want to come into work 5 days a week. And I think that's, we have proven that we have been successful and efficient in a hybrid world. But with a hybrid world comes a loss, in my view, of connectivity, collaboration, and sort of that human connection. And I think it's important to sort of return to those relationships. And I think there's lots of ways to do it without necessarily bringing people back in 5 days a week. I don't think that we have to do that to be successful in sort of bridging some of the gaps. One of the things that's impressive to me is that when a new employee comes, they are hired with the expectation and understanding that for some period of time, and it's up to the managers, they will be in person every day. And I think that that's really important to the employee. But I think as a court, we can do better about making ourselves more present during that time as well, to be welcoming of that employee. And I think that the managers are great about agreeing, as long as there's coverage, to shift who's coming in on what day. I think we have to be more thoughtful and try to find times within the week or the month that more folks are in on a given day, so that there is the support for the new employee, but there's also the ability for people to connect. We do have some fun social events at the court, but I don't think we can just rely on sort of social events to have people connected. We have started to have a new employee have not just a mentor within their own department, but a mentor in another department, so that they have a reason to reach out sort of across the aisle, if you will, to somebody in a different department. I think that needs to continue. I think we need to make that more robust. But it is absolutely a challenge to figure out how to balance sort of our new normal. We have a young bench and we have a young staff, we have new managers, and I think everyone shares the common goal of sort of getting away from the statistics, although they're important, and trying to figure out how to reestablish that human connection. And I'm looking forward to that challenge. I think it's something that I'm good at.
That definitely comes through. I appreciate that. In terms of sort of harkening back to Councilor Kennedy's question about just the speed with which on the one side decisions are coming through, but then on the other side, how the expedience or the efficiency of publishing, editing, and sort of the procedural components of the work that comes through the court. Do you have thoughts around any intentions that you may already have in mind, or are you going to wait until you like get in there to really see what kind of changes you might want to encourage, or what's your view around?
The answer is sort of both, right? And if I'm in that seat, I have my perceptions, but until I'm there, I need to keep that framework. And one of the things, and it may be very ambitious, but I would like in my first however many days to have individual one-on-one meetings with every single person on the appeals court, from the last person hired that's a file clerk to the most senior justice. I think department meetings are important, but sometimes I think people aren't as comfortable speaking in a department meeting. And if people don't want to meet, I respect that, and I understand that. And if it's a union person that wants their steward there, I have no problem with that either, but I want to make myself available so that on a one-on-one basis, I can listen and learn and try and understand everyone's perspective. With that said, we have a judicial mentoring program that I've thought about, should that be longer than the period of time that it is, particularly in this hybrid world. There are some judges that struggle with, it's a very different writing when you come from the trial court to the appeals court. I can say that because I came from a trial court. I've thought about, is there a way to utilize writing coaches in some ways? And that could include attorneys that already work for the court, like Attorney Farrell, who's just an amazing attorney with great background. I've also thought about sort of some fluidity in the departments. Right now, I feel like at times the departments, whether it be the clerk's office or the statutory department, is very siloed. I would like to see if there's a way to have some collaboration and fluidity so that if there's really a backlog in one particular department, there are folks that can sort of help out, and that would be vice versa when the other department needs help. So I have sort of big ideas about it, but I need to understand from the individual managers and staff how that can and should work. And look, I'm willing to try something and say, if it didn't work, let's start over and try something else. But I think that there's creative things that we can do as a court.
I appreciate all of that, and I have nothing but positive things to say about you. So I will pass it along to my fellow counselor. But I just appreciate all the time and the conversations that we've had. So
Thank you, Counselor Jacobs.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Piera.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Morning.
Good morning, Counselor Ferrer.
Nice to see you again.
You too.
Do all these people like you, or did you promise them lunch?
Lunch.
All right. We got quite a crowd here. It's incredible. Sorry, I'm a little late. I had I thought I had a 9 o'clock appointment at the courthouse in Taunton, but it's actually at 2 o'clock. So I was 5 hours early there. You have a great review. I was actually just ran into Tracy Souza in the juvenile court this morning, and she had great things to say about your work and how much you've done for the system. Well appreciated. No one's ever said a bad word about you, and that I, except for Terry Kennedy once. But he didn't mean it. But I think you got to be a great chief. The question I have for you is, are you going to follow in the footsteps of your predecessors, Chief Green and Chief Ravad Raposa, and move down to District 1 so you can vote for me?
Do I need a passport?
Issued. You have my vote next week. You're going to make a tremendous difference. And I'm just one question about, do you think there's a good mix of people from different areas of the law in the court, or could you use more? I know today, 2 people got nominated, one juvenile court background and one with a criminal background. Do you think there's a good mix, and do you think you could use different varieties of people with specialties?
In the perfect world, I would love to have another probate and family court judge, if I'm being honest. A lot of that falls to me, and I've been out of that court on the day-to-day for 10 years. I also think geographic diversity is important. It brings a different perspective. So I learned this morning about the nominations, and I'm thrilled about them. But I'm looking forward to see what happens next.
Great. Well, you have my vote next week, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Devaney.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Before I start, I want to correct something. I have voted, as my colleague, with every woman chief justice in the courts, but I did vote against a former woman on the Supreme Judicial Court. So having said that, first of all, I can't tell you, I don't have a poker face, how thrilled I am with your appointment and how happy I am. This wasn't 2 months from now that I'm here to be able to talk with you at the hearing and to vote for you. We go back a long way. This is my 3rd time voting for you. And it's been 16 years. And so I vetted, investigated all that about you, and meeting with you the 3rd time for this special. So it is so, I can't say you're so qualified for this position that I'm over the moon over this. So I'm not a poker face person. So having said that, I just, we went over a lot of things. So much has changed in the 10 years that you've been there, and going through COVID, and people in the court working at home, and not having a full staff, and people not staying because we like to work with, you like to work with your colleagues. You like to know who they are. So people coming in, working at home, don't have any interaction. So the whole thing is kind of upside down. It really, I'm glad it's returning a little bit, but it's slow. But, you know, with your experience to take this position, we couldn't ask for anything better because you know what's needed in the court. And we talked about that. And so I want you to tell us what you feel is the greatest need, what you want to change. And the other thing is how our society has changed. And I have said to you, judges 20, 30 years ago didn't have the cases coming before them as judges today. There's no case law for a lot of them. You know, who gets the eggs, frozen eggs, who gets the child in a gay marriage, all of that. So I want you to tell people, because I don't think people realize how important this position is. You have the authority to change laws, to make changes, to change rules. So would you educate people? Let's take that one first.
Sure. So obviously we have to follow the law as the legislature has written it, but in this changing sort of day of technology and what constitutes a family, we have the opportunity to interpret laws, and it's a very different world today than even when I joined the probate and family court. When I was in the probate and family court, if a couple used a surrogate to have a child, they would have to go through a very lengthy adoption process, and some states wouldn't recognize that adoption process. The law has changed certainly in Massachusetts and has changed on a federal level. But even recently, when I served as single justice and I had the assistance of Clerk Tuttle, we had a situation where a gay couple had used a surrogate, and there was a question about whether or not the child would be born perhaps out of state, and which state's laws would apply and which state would recognize whether or not that they were the parent. And it was a challenging legal issue. I can't thank Clerk Tuttle enough for all of his work in helping me to sort of figure that out. But it was also incredibly satisfying to know that this couple would be able to go to the hospital, have a baby, and the baby would be theirs from the get-go. Their names would be on the birth certificate, and they didn't have to go through red tape, and they would be a family from day one. And that is just, it's a one specific example of how different things are 16 years later. And I'm so proud to be a part of it. But also on the technology side, you know, in the criminal court, so much has changed. You know, our cell phones are computers. They have tracking devices on them. I'd like to know where my son is all the time, but he turned his location services on. So I don't know where he is, but we know where a lot of defendants are, as it turns out. And, you know, sort of the Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendment issues around that is nothing I could have envisioned as a young prosecutor trying cases against Counselor Kennedy. And even 10 years ago when I joined the appeals court, I had no idea what a geofence was. I just thought it was something you put around your pool in your backyard. I've now been educated. And so you have to sort of, you know, keep on top of technology, and the laws are the laws, but they haven't thought about, contemplated. You know, every day we're advancing with AI here and coming. I think we're going to have all kinds of challenges, even at fundamental challenges, like when a lawyer files a brief and they've used artificial intelligence and it's spit out cases that don't exist. We've all read about that in the newspaper. You know, that's scary. I think lawyers should have to certify that they've checked. I know that there are working groups that are working on these issues, but that's not something we could have anticipated years ago. And so it's an exciting time. It's a challenging time, but it's also very fulfilling to be able to do the work, to figure these things out, all for the greater good of the Commonwealth.
Right. Tell us about some of the changes that you have made. And the other thing is, I know you're very investigative about other states, and you talked about New York, and I mean how the surrogate is on the birth certificate and not the parents and all of that. So tell us what you have, because what you see as a Chief Justice, what kind of things you can change, and you have that authority.
So, I mean, as chief alone, I don't think I can necessarily change things, but what we can do as a court, and I think it's important to have conversations often and educational opportunities often, not just for the judges. I think that everyone in the court has to be educated on these things because things will come up and it might be in a petition in the single justice session that only one judge is going to see. And whether or not that's something that should sort of be reported out to the whole court or something we should let the SJC know is sort of bubbling around in our docket because ultimately the SJC is the one that can sort of set the precedent. We do our best and sometimes they agree with us and sometimes they don't. But I think as chief, you have to just be acutely aware of the technology, of the legal issues that are being presented, and be in a position to create working groups to figure out how to deal with the issues and make recommendations to the court as to how to really harness the new changes in technology and in humanity and figure out how to do justice in that way.
Do you have cases where you ask for a continuance, and is that often? And can you tell us about that?
So we have a unique situation in the appeals court where our incredible clerk's office sends out notice of unavailability. So lawyers that are appearing in the appeals court are on advance notice of when they can and can't appear. But let's be honest, life does happen, right? So people get sick, things happen. We do everything we can to accommodate people when they need a continuance. I think it's rarer in the appellate courts than it is in the trial courts. But even as recently as last month, we got a last minute request. A jury trial had gone longer than expected. The lawyer was supposed to be in the appeals court actually, I think he was 5th on the list. So he might've been called, let's say around noontime, but he needed to be in the Superior Court for 9:30. So I was the senior judge on the panel. And so I talked with my panel. We reached out to the Superior Court judge and said, if we hear the case at 9:30, we'll get him out the door by 10. It was actually next door in Suffolk, so it was convenient. Can we, as long as we have him there by 10, is that fine by you? And he said, yes, thank you for accommodating. And the lawyer was happy to do it that way. So you have to, you can't check your humanity at the door. Things happen and we have to be prepared to give extensions or continuances when they're necessary. Absolutely.
Right. Have there been cases that have come to you that you felt it didn't need an appeal, that you just voted with the district judge?
So everybody just about has the right to file an appeal. It's an interesting and different process in Massachusetts and other states. I was at a national conference last week and heard about their discretion to not take appeals. I bet my colleagues would love to hear more about that. But the reality is we take every appeal now, and we take, look at the appeal is just as important to every litigant. It might be the only appeal they ever have. It's maybe the only case they ever have. So no matter what the issue is, whether it's a very expensive lawyer that's filed an appeal or a self-represented litigant that's doing the very best, we have to approach them all the same. We do not issue decisions that say affirmed for the reasons that the trial court judge said. We are very mindful and thoughtful about each case needs to have a decision. I write, and I believe my colleagues do as well, for the losing party. I want the person that's lost, they're not going to be happy, but I want them to know their arguments have been heard, and I try to explain why we came out the way we came out, and I think all of my colleagues share that.
Well, the thing, I've been following the appeals and for you for 16 years, following you, and as an animal lover, the case that I was so concerned about, and I was absolutely so pleased it turned out that way. And for people who haven't heard it, you probably heard it from me before, but it came up before the appeals court that in the district court, this woman was with her little dog on her lawn, and this man came by with a dog on a leash and a German Shepherd that was loose. Well, the German Shepherd ran and attacked the little dog, tore her apart. Thank God the dog survived and went to the vet. And now the woman, the owner, is going to the court asking for $8,000 for the cost of the surgery. And the judge ruled the dog was property. And when it went to the appeals court, they changed case law in Massachusetts So your pets are not property. So that out of all of them, and I know there was more important things that came up, but that really was so important to me. And I thought, good for them. So I know you're working on all of these things. And is there, I'm sure that you have some things that you have that you want to change. Do you want to talk about any of those things now that, to better the court, to better the system?
What I really want to try to focus on, because so much of our staff is union, and there's very few opportunities to give people raises and even fewer opportunities for promotion. We run a pretty tight financial skeletal system. So I really want to look for opportunities for people to feel professional growth and development within the court that will, I think, help morale, will help them stay invested in the mission of the court. And I think there's educational opportunities. I think there's mentorship opportunities. I think there's committee assignment opportunities that we could do better with in terms of getting every member of the court more involved and feeling, I want everyone to feel glad that they come to the appeals court every day to come to work, invested in our mission and proud of their work, because I'm incredibly proud of all of them.
I'm sorry,
it-
Counselor,
it-
you've gone over your time, so you need to.
They voted to tie me, so I'm done. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yes, you may, Counselor.
Expensive living is represented by expensive lawyers.
Yes.
We just came in the room.
Do we time? We do. Everyone's time.
Do we time him?
Yeah, I did.
You just
Counselor
can talk
Ionel.
out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. We had a lengthy conversation. I've supported your appointments, I think, since 2008 in the probate court. You're doing an outstanding job. Your witnesses were fantastic. They were really, really good. And I just want you to know, when your name comes before us next week, I'll be happy to support you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. I've been a big fan of yours since I've met you when I first came here about 12 years ago. In my time on the council is ending soon, and I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for applying for this job. I think you're the exact right person at the exact right time. I learn a lot from you every time I read anything you've written, and anytime I call you for help on a legal matter, because I'm not a lawyer. I know enough to be dangerous, but I am not a lawyer. So I wanted to thank you, but I really want to take the opportunity to thank every single person in this room who works in the court system in some capacity, the court officers, the attorneys, the clerks, the judges. We have the best court system in the country, and it's really because of you guys. And I know it can be very hard listening to pundits, talk about us negatively at times, but I want to let you know, over the last 12 years, I've learned a tremendous amount from every single one of you, and really deeply appreciate the work that every single person related to the court system does. So thank you. And again, thank you, Justice Blake. I think you're going to be a great chief, and thanks for stepping up. And if there are no other questions, hearing none, hearing's ended.
You're over here next to Joe. You hurt his feelings if you do.
All right, everyone, good afternoon. Go ahead and call us into order at 12:10 PM. I'd like to recognize Counselor Jacobs for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant.
I make that motion?
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. I'd like to recognize Counselor Devaney for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries public and justices of the peace.
Second,
Seconded by Counselor Inella. All those in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. And we have two new nominations. Honorable Gloria Tan of Newton to the position of Associate Justice of the Appeals Court. Counselor Devaney, do you have a date and time set?
Yes.
For your hearing?
I will hold that hearing on November sixth at 10:30.
Does that work for
10:30,
everyone
don't we have
else?
something else?
The day after elections.
It's the day after the,
So you
ele-
don't have an election, what do you care?
I haven't. election.
no, that's early.
Okay, just, so November,
No,
is there
we
a
don't
conflict
do
with
the
that
day
for
after election.
folks?
Huh?
Is there a conflict? I just saw, nope.
It's the day after the election.
Yeah, we could be up till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. It's not a good time.
You're gonna be up late, like the rest of.
Do whatever, whatever you want.
Well,
That's
no,
bad.
I'm just,
Whatever anyone wants. So it's all out, not even 1 o'clock? You're not out yet from your parties?
You already have one. I don't like two on the same day.
I can't go to that one. I just told you I'm at a conference.
How about the next week, whatever time you say, Marilyn, we compromise.
maybe we can try and find a way that works for everybody.
Anyone for the next week.
We already have one on November
is it?
6th.
Following week,
Well, why don't I make it at 1 o'clock on the 13th?
okay, November 13th at 1 PM. I'm seeing head shake.
Sounds
so
good.
Your party-
Feels like,
Thank you very much, Marilyn.
Thank you.
okay. So November 13th at 1 PM, that will be for the Honorable Gloria Tan. And then we have Chauncey
Call back and-
Brainerd Wood to the position of Associate Justice of the Appeals Court. Counselor Kennedy, do you have a date for the hearing?
I was gonna do the 13th, but that's gone, so I guess it's the following week. Do we have two on the 13th, Marilyn?
It's the appeals court, may take a while.
It won't take long.
Okay.
The following week, by 10:30.
On the 13th. Okay, so we've got that date set. It's going to be a busy day that day. That's good.
From what I understand, we're gonna be busy.
Yeah, we are. We got to get a lot, we got to get stuff done. All right, those two hearing dates are set. I don't think we have any other business, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Jacobs. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Duff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.